It's Christmas time, baby. Objectively, the happiest time to be alive. It's the month when all your stress and worries fade away as you give presents to your kids, loved ones, or friends. Where every New Year's resolution meets its end because who really eats healthy in December? Go on, eat another cookie. I dare you. A time where you can create a gingerbread house and drink hot chocolate while simultaneously having to listen to Justin Bieber's Mistletoe on repeat for the 1000th time on the radio. But undoubtedly, the best thing about this time of the year is being able to watch Christmas movies. Now, there are plenty of contenders for what could be the greatest Christmas movie ever made. Elf, Polar Express, Jingle All the Way, The Santa Claus, but the one we're talking about today is a film so good, it's not only ingrained in society as the epitome of what a Christmas film should be, but launched a surprisingly large amount of sequels, turning this into a semi-large franchise. And if you haven't guessed by now, well, the movie is Home Alone, a film that embodies the holiday to its max, yet I was today years old when I found out that there was more than 2 of these movies. No, there are 6 films. What? So I thought it would be a fun way to start the holiday season by watching all of them and ranking them. However, these films will be ranked based on certain criteria, with that being story. How well does each film's story unfold? Characters. How well are each of the characters written in any of these films? Final action sequence. How well made is it, and is it fun to watch? And lastly, how well does this film embody Christmas and family? These are Christmas family movies at the end of the day. With these categories in place, it's only fitting we jump right into the action and get started with the Home Alone franchise.
It's the most beautiful time of the year. Lights fill the streets, spreading so much cheer.
This kid is the devil. Straight up. A reboot of this film is not what I had in mind, but does this film do it well? No, I'd say it doesn't. The story of this movie is pretty ludicrous, even for Home Alone standards. The basis is the same as the originals, being the main kid is left home alone with his parents and family leaving for Tokyo without him, and there's people breaking into his home and he needs to stop them. However, there's a few caveats here. Well, one of these kids is British. Oi, there's a few intruders in here, innit? And 2, these guys are the real main characters, and definitely not him. A major change this film does in terms of story is by giving the burglars a sympathetic backstory. Although I think it's played out for a lot of films, for a Home Alone movie, I think that's actually kind of interesting, especially with how the villains are pretty much protagonists in this movie. We see life through their eyes more than the main kids. The issue they have is that they're broke and can't afford the house they live in anymore, yet by much surprise, a doll Peter from Deadpool 2 has is worth 200 grand. Only in a Disney movie you find this, by the way. But it gets taken and they presume it's the kid that took it, so they make a rational decision to break into the kid's home and try and steal it back. I'm of the opinion that the original Home Alone is very reliant on its age and when it came out, in a good way. A lot of the issues Kevin faced in the earlier movies was just based on insufficient technology. He couldn't just call his family, and the cops were too far away to catch the burglars in the storm when they were robbing his home. In this film though, a simple phone call could suffice. And the reason he doesn't call the cops in this movie is because he thinks his parents will go to jail because they left him alone for a few hours. Isn't that a little insane? And for half the film, we're led to believe that this struggling family is at the mercy of this kid that stole their doll. So I'm over here fuck you. All jokes aside though, this movie doesn't know whether it wants to poke fun at itself for trying to copy the original or be sincere in its own right. And that ruins this movie for me. When there's serious moments playing out between these parents, how their lives are about to be upended, and then you get a joke like this.
No good
Oh, this is garbage. I don't know why they were always trying to remake the classics.
It's what is this film trying to accomplish? Do the creators not even want to make it? Knowing Disney has control over this franchise, I'd put my money on that, honestly. The side characters have no depth either. The other family members are in 2 scenes, so you don't really get a family sense here or how it's driving this kid insane. There's no Buzz or Uncle Frank that stand out, people who make Kevin feel inadequate. Instead, they're just writing this kid as an ass. I get Kevin was too, but he had a right to be. His whole family treated him like shit before his outburst, but this kid was barely talking down to, more so had some slight inconveniences. There's no sense of Christmas here either. I didn't get a sense of warmth or uplifting nurture here, just the bland cinematography you expect from a Disney Plus movie at this point. Considering this is a blatant reboot of the original, it's got no sense of emotional depth to it either. Like in the original, Kevin learns how important family is through the old man who didn't see his kid anymore due to a falling out, which leads to that really heartwarming scene in the church with him looking at his granddaughter singing. In this film, there's none of that. The creators don't know who to focus the film on, or if they want this movie to be a parody or a straight up drama, and it wrecks the rest of the movie's tone entirely. I would have preferred if they went all in on focusing on the sympathetic parents. It just would have been way more interesting for me to watch. The final setup action sequence was fun, but when you realize it's all null because all they had to say was, "Hey, we're here for this doll," you're like, why am I even having to watch this? What's worse is the film then really digs deep on wasting your time because this kid didn't even have what they were looking for. It was at their own house the entire time. Honestly, the only cool thing about this movie was the Buzz cameo, and Peter from Deadpool was pretty funny sometimes. I also did like the idea of the villains having motivations and being like the leads of this movie. It was just executed poorly. Other than those things, yeah, this movie kind of sucks. Even the actors look like they're having a hard time reading this script.
Oh, little boy doesn't want to share his dolly.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
In terms of story, this movie gets a 2. The characters were a 2. The action scene a 3. And the Christmas vibe a 1, putting this at 8. Putting it in last place so far.
Last Christmas, I gave you my heart.
Shockingly, this direct-to-TV movie has more soul in it than the Disney slop that was Home Sweet Home Alone. If any of you watched the ABC Family back in the day, you'll probably remember this movie playing in the back of your home while your two egregious relatives argued over which political candidate was best. But if you actually sat through the film, you find it's not that bad. All of these sequels follow similar formulas, so the idea is still the same. You know, kid gets trapped at home and has to stop bad guys. But the ideas behind this movie felt more natural and interesting and fresh, which I wasn't expecting. The story follows this family as they move into this new home in Maine, but underneath the house comes with a priceless painting worth $85 million. Shit! I'd be breaking into this house too if I found out it was worth that much. And the bad guys want it for themselves to profit off of it. Pretty standard stuff, but what it lacks in originality makes up for in other components. Specifically the family dynamics and its more modern approach. This movie really makes you feel the family dynamic everyone has here, and I thought that was really nice. It's rare to actually see the family together longer than the opening sequences before the main character is left by himself, so seeing them go pick out a Christmas tree and hanging out in the town was pretty nice. It had a very heartwarming element to it that the previous movie just didn't. I also enjoy the idea of the parents leaving because of an event instead of them forgetting their children. True. It works for the first films, but after a while it becomes a little fantastical. The modern spin on it can be kind of cringe, but oh boy, was this film ahead of the curve when it came to kids my age having to interact with other people.
Look, this is not a root canal or something. It's a Christmas party. There'll be other kids there.
That I'll have to talk to.
I thought having a sister be involved in the final sequence added something new as well. Obviously this movie isn't a masterpiece, but it's very enjoyable, something I couldn't say about the one previous. The villains are okay. The final sequence was pretty entertaining all around though. It's just a lower budgeted, less iconic version of what we had before, but the added layer of the painting makes it more compelling to watch. Plus, seeing the main character's online friend be swatted was hilarious.
FBI, open up!
Overall, this movie isn't that bad for a modern retelling of the 1990s original. So in terms of story, I'd give it a 3, characters a 3, final action scene a 3, and the element of Christmas and family a 4, putting this at a total of 13.
He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're away.
I'm gonna be honest, this was the hardest to watch. I barely paid attention to this one. Of all these movies so far, this was easily the hardest to sit down and watch all the way through. I don't know how this movie was actually released to an audience. With a franchise that started with 2 of some of the highest grossing films of its time, to going straight to DVD is wild. This film is supposed to be a continuation of the McAllister story from the first 2, but with a whole new cast. His parents are divorced in this movie, and he needs to decide if he wants to spend Christmas with his mom or his rich, mega affluent dad and his new girlfriend. And this movie makes it clear which side it prefers. Yet, it's such a cold movie. There's little to no warmth and spirit to it. Every shot looks mega bland and boring, and the rich house has no soul to it that makes me want to continue watching. The Home Alone films have such a place in our hearts, not just because of the concept, but how well the environment draws us into the Christmas vibe, and this movie just doesn't do that. This movie brings back a new Marv, but no Harry. This time it's his girlfriend, and they're there. They don't evoke any of the same energy Daniel Stern brought to the character. As for the other side characters, it's wild to me that they thought it was a good idea to try and continue the McAllister story with these people, because half the family is gone for mysterious reasons. The only other siblings Kevin has in this movie is Buzz and Megan, and the other aunts, uncles, and cousins are just gone. The semblance of family the originals had is no longer existent here, as the divorce plot takes up so much time. None of the new characters are interesting, and the final action sequence is just so monotonous to watch. I felt like I was watching paint dry with this movie. In terms of story, it's a 1. In terms of characters, a 1. In terms of the final action sequence, a 2. And the family Christmas vibe, a 2. Making this my least favorite Home Alone movie, and rightfully so. I would never rewatch this.
Oh, no.
Yo guys, we're on the road to 10,000 subscribers, so if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. The faster you do, the quicker I'll get my Harry Potter ranking video out, so get to clicking away.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop.
This film is absolutely bonkers in a way that I found pretty enjoyable. I think this film takes a good approach to saying, screw it, let's just make a crazy and enjoyable trap sequence. We'll figure the rest of the story out from there. And hey, I found it fun. This movie's main character is not Kevin McAllister either, but a new kid named Alex who has to stay home alone because he has chicken pox. My dumbass saw this scene and thought bro just had freckles. Like, why is he freaking out? This is what I look like, by the way. So if I had chicken pox, I'd be screwed. But his next door neighbor gives him a toy car that has this SIM chip in it with government secrets that these secret spies want to use to blackmail the US government for another country's government agency. If what I said sounded like word vomit, trust me, this is what the movie's about. The main kid who plays Alex is very adorable, and I think he commands the screen. If any of you have seen the movie Max Keeble's Big Move or Full Court Miracle, you know this kid lived rent-free in your childhood. There's also a baby Scarlett Johansson in this movie. I was not expecting that. Most of the film revolves around Alex, so it's a film that solely focuses on his perspective. And he does a good enough job to keep me invested as a character. Other characters include the villains, who are these secret spies, and although they got cooked by a kid driving an RV toy car, I thought they were fun. Also, respectfully, let me just say the main bad lady, you have my heart. You can tell the writers behind this film needed a new, more innovative reasoning behind the bad guys doing what they do, but man, government secrets was not on my bucket list for it. The story is so ludicrous that it shouldn't even be evaluated on a scale of nuance, but more so if I was entertained by it throughout its zaniness. And I did. This film relies on its absurd premise and fun characters to keep it going, and it did a good enough job at that. Alex's booby traps against these guys though, let's just say if this was rated R, we'd have a whole different outcome here. It's a fun sequence, but man, does Alex straight up murder some of these guys over and over again. Shit had me cringing in pain. However, this film lacks a lot of the holiday cheer and seasonal appeal that the Macaulay Culkin films have. It's based in winter, but it has no Christmas vibe to it, like at all. And the overall family vibe the characters have is pretty low. I mean, half the time the whole family is gaslighting Alex because they don't believe anyone exists trying to steal government secrets. And to be honest, if my kid came up to me and said, "Hey dad, I think there's spies across the street trying to steal government secrets," I'd lock his ass up in Arkham Asylum. That's crazy talk.
You're clearly not yourself. You're confused, sick.
But overall, this movie is pretty fun. Of the Home Alone sequels so far, I had a pretty good time with it. And it's really the only sequel besides bits of Holiday Heist where I felt the spark of what the first two movies provided. So with the story, I'd give it a 3, the characters a 3, the action a 4, and the Christmas family vibe a 2, bringing this story to a 13. This movie is also directed by the guy who made the Scooby-Doo films, by the way. Do with that information as you will.
And when I find them, I'll give them a good dose of puppy power! Ta-da!
Oh, God.
Now, I've been saving these two for last because they kickstarted this franchise and are considered societal movie Christmas classics. These movies did a lot for holiday films in general and have made lasting impressions on most moviegoers around the world. So without further ado, let's finally dive into the Macaulay Culkin-led Home Alone films. To be honest, Home Alone 2 is the only sequel on this list that I've truly adored. This movie glorifies the hell out of New York, and I absolutely love it. I think this movie knows exactly how to utilize its premise for a fun and exciting story continuation. Although it falls into the traps of the other sequels, where it rehashes much from the original, I find the atmosphere and environment change is so drastic, and with the city being a huge character in itself, that it adds much more new energy to the franchise compared to Home Alone 3 and beyond. In terms of story, Kevin gets lost in New York because he takes the wrong plane, and his family ends up in Florida while he's in the city. While he's there, the wet bandits broke out of prison and are making it their mission to rob a kid's toy store before leaving the country. Until Kevin finds out about this and puts them through 20 minutes of hell.
Oops.
Fatality.
Like I said before, the main premise is pretty similar, but having the city be the main focal point leads to a ton of fun and great moments, like Kevin's experiences in the plaza ranging from ordering mass amounts of room service, doing cannonballs in the pool, or pretending to light up hotel staff with a Tommy gun. Side note, never understood why this dude immediately was out to get Kevin from the jump. What's weirder is him checking on his room while a supposed father is in the shower. Keep this guy away from kids. Kevin experiencing the city is so much fun though. As someone who lives on the East Coast of the USA and has visited New York City a lot, it's still fun to see some locations through the lens of a 1992 atmosphere. I mean, I never got to see the Twin Towers.
Bro, watch your jet. Watch your jet, bro. Watch your jet!
But also him traveling through Central Park, going to the toy stores, being by the Rockefeller Center tree, just leads to a grander Christmas vibe atmosphere that I think is quite endearing. In terms of characters, I feel like everyone who participated in these films felt more close to home with them. Everyone seemed on game to give solid performances all around, and Kevin did a great job as the lead for most of the film. Culkin knew how to run this character, and it showed back then. His family, specifically his mom, was great here too. But without a doubt, the characters with the most sauce was Marv and Harry. I loved them in the first movie, but man, do they take it up a notch in this one. Their comedic timing is huge.
Harry? You wearing aftershave?
That's not aftershave, that's kerosene.
A huge compliment I have for this movie is its comedic writing and its physical comedy. Kevin spit off some one-liners that are hilarious.
Wouldn't want to spoil your fun, Mr. Cheapskate.
But the final booby trap sequence gives the sticky bandits, particularly Marv, time to shine to just make you laugh your ass off.
Suck brick, kid!
I mean, Kevin sets up a Saw death trap in this movie. If you thought Alex in 3 was bad, Kevin straight up murders Marv and brings him back to life like 4 times. Which is why this booby trap sequence is so great, because it gives Daniel Stern the ability to showcase his absolutely genius comedic timing and physical comedy, but it also gives Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern some time to riff off of each other, which is just so funny. If I had to critique anything about this film, I'd say it's the familiarity with the first one in terms of some story beats, particularly with the homeless bird woman replicating the old man neighbor from the first movie. I know they wanted a semblance of Christmas warmth, but I feel like this movie got that with the Toy Story owner, and it could have just kept it with that. But other than that, I love this movie. It's such a treat to watch it every year, and I think its themes are universal and can be appreciated every year. In terms of story, I'd give this movie a 4, characters a 5, booby trap sequence a 5, and Christmas vibe a 4, bringing this to an 18. But we can't finish this tier list off until we talk about the movie that started it all. Everything about this movie works. It's so good. And buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm about to glaze this movie to death. As I mentioned, I think this movie has plenty of joyous, humorous, meaningful, and nuanced sequences that make for a holiday classic, but also makes this a pretty damn good movie regardless. A holiday classic doesn't always mean the movie itself is good, but man, this movie is more than good. It's fucking excellent. Before I dive into the story, I just want to proclaim how wonderful the behind-the-scenes talent was on this movie. Chris Columbus really shines with down-to-earth family films, and shockingly, is the one guy in Hollywood who knows how to work with kids professionally. John Williams literally turned the holiday of Christmas and made it into music. I don't know what else to say. It's brilliant, and I always picture this music when I think of Christmas. The casting crew who put this whole cast together deserves an award because everyone is perfectly cast. The parents, the other relatives, especially Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern as Harry and Marv. Their chemistry holds the entirety of the villain arc together and keeps this movie just as fun without Kevin being involved. Their comedic timing is also brilliant. There are so many moments in this film that had me cackling with laughter, mostly during the booby trap sequence whenever Kevin would do something painful to them, or whenever Marv just screams. But without a doubt, whoever decided to cast Macaulay Culkin as Kevin needs an Oscar, because this kid is so goddamn good. I've seen child actors do good jobs, but man, does he do it better than most his age. He had a rare talent being this good at such a young age, and I'm so glad he's doing well nowadays with his wife, who's also a childhood icon of mine, and has 2 kids. Real king shit right there. Now, this goes to how well the writers write him, but Macaulay's ability to say certain lines with conviction and sincerity, yet still have that naive, young attitude is insane. He draws you in emotionally, which is a very hard thing to do for a young actor, since most of the time, it's the hardest to get a kid to convey these more adult emotions. So props to Columbus and the writing team for doing this. This movie's story is so interesting, and it invested me right away. I've seen this movie countless times, but this time, as I was rewatching it, there's subtle hints that I've missed in the past that works better than the other reboots or sequels we've mentioned already. One, having the film open with Harry in the house was genius, and letting him ask the dad what security he has was a clever way for the antagonist to know how to break into their home undetected. 2, letting the family have some time together let the family dynamic grow, so you see how they treat Kevin most of the time, which is quite shitty, or at least degrading in his eyes. 3, that turmoil leads to an understandable outbreak from him, leading to him being banished to the attic. And lastly, I thought the fact that they left and an electrician came up and told the dad and said the phone lines were down provided ample reasons as to why it was harder for them to reach the house later on. Again, these smaller details subconsciously made me ask less questions later on about the logistics for this movie and why it's happening. And I appreciated that. I really appreciate small details like this being had. Even things like the creators making these short films that have become iconic in their own right for scenes later on was inventive and really fun. Also, I highly recommend this show on Netflix called The Movies That Made Us. One episode is dedicated to Home Alone, and within that episode, it revealed a lot about the crew, how they made a model home so they could film scenes within the house without actually filming in a real house because it would have been way too cramped, which I thought was really awesome. But another thing was that they purposefully painted the home in Christmas colors, so red, green, white, gold. So subconsciously, you felt the Christmas vibe immediately, which, like, hats off. Finally learning that after years of watching this movie was an awesome thing. The final action sequence with the Wet Bandits and Kevin is genuinely hilarious and so well done. I felt like it was the right amount of movie magic plus thief stupidity to keep it going. With these recent outings, the burglars are just straight up stupid, so it makes you wonder why they're even going through the trouble, but some of the contraptions in here are so well placed and would fool my ass too. This movie has a strong emphasis on family and Christmas. The film opens up with a chaotic household, only to bookend with the family more close after being separated. But a great moment has to be when Kevin is in the church with the older fellow from across the street, learning how this older gentleman is simply a man yearning to reconnect with his family, but is scared to because of a decades-long falling out with his own son, is so saddening. Yet I love how a young Kevin redirects the old man's advice and forces him to reconnect with his son anyway. It may seem cliche, but man, it works. And that final shot of the old man with his granddaughter and son is so perfect. I just think everything about this movie works. The team behind it came together and blended all these elements of what Christmas Christmas should be into a fun, thriller, burglary family Christmas movie. And it worked so well. It's no surprise it's a classic to this day. In terms of story, I'd give this movie a 5, characters a 5, action set piece a 4, and family Christmas vibe a 5. Bringing this to a 19, putting in an S tier alongside its sequel. This movie is worth its weight in gold. I love it dearly. It's safe to say that the Home Alone movies are a mixed bag. It's clear that the Macaulay Culkin-led films are phenomenal, while the other sequels range from not bad to holy fuck, why were these ever made? But it truly goes to show how influential these first two movies had on just society in general. There's something special about turning these movies on every December, because you know it's the perfect seasonal movie to get you in the Christmas spirit. And the first two movies are without a doubt the best made movies of the bunch. But what do you all think? Do you enjoy some of the sequels more than the original? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, hit that like and subscribe button. Again, we're on the road to 10K, so hit that button so you're a part of the community before we do. It also helps push this video out to more people like you who likes these kinds of videos. Also, if any of you are interested, feel free to join my membership. Any small amount helps keep the lights on here, so it's much appreciated. Thanks to the Wub God and Big Old Bear for already being a part of the community. That's all I have for me today, guys. I'll see you all in the next one. I hope you have a fantastic December, and I hope you enjoy the holiday leading up to Christmas. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.